What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We're back on Rugby 20 today. It's not my face on camera. I went to the beach over the weekend and my face is now bright red and I look utterly ridiculous. So we won't be doing that. So in the background for your viewing pleasure, we will have a game that kicked off in the Rainbow Cup. It was, of course, Dragons versus Scarlets. I thought today we'd go through some stuff. I had a couple of video ideas and I didn't really know how to do them, so I thought I'd merge them all together. So, of course, over the weekend we had the start of the Rainbow Cup, which sounds like it's been a superb weekend of rugby. I didn't get to see a single game of it, so I've had to go back and check out some stuff. But of course, the key news, what will be in the thumbnail, obviously, will be the big news that George North is now out. He tore his ACL in the Ospreys Blues game, and for anyone who's watched rugby or watches sport generally an awful lot, you know how much of a big impact an ACL injury is. I mean, it's potentially career-ending. He has already been announced that he's going to be having surgery on it. But it's certainly one of those things that once it's damaged, it can be extremely hard to get back into the sport. It can certainly take a year to 2 years to get back in if you haven't got, good physiotherapy and stuff. And at his age, in his position that he plays, it could certainly be a career-ending thing. It's certainly going to be a Lions miss for George North, unfortunately. Such a rise back for him over the last sort of 18 months or so, was really out of form, couldn't know what he wanted to do, couldn't play on the wing, wasn't really good enough in centre, and then this year has done so well. Coming back for the Ospreys towards the end of last year, the season they had was working so well with him on the right wing, been really influential in trying to get that Ospreys team back on track from where they wanted to be. And then, of course, going into the Six Nations, getting himself a Six Nations win with Wales, playing very well in that outside centre channel. Everyone, including myself, putting his name down potentially for Lions tour potential, but he won't be getting there, unfortunately, so it's a shame that we're going to see George North go. So it'll be interesting to see who gets to replace him. Maybe, off the top of my head, I'm trying to think, maybe it's going to have to be another centre. Maybe Henry Slade might take that position. I don't know. It renders some of my videos a little bit useless in terms of predicting the Lions team. That's unfortunately how it goes. But let's have a talk a little bit about the Rainbow Tournament as a whole. So starting off with that game that I mentioned, of course, the Ospreys versus Blues. For anyone who hasn't seen it, I'll go through some of the games that have, or all of the games that were on the weekend, and sort of give the scores and a little bit of what happened in each game. So if you haven't seen it and you want to go back and see it, pause it now, go watch the game and come back to the video. So the Ospreys managed to beat the Blues in their opening game 36-14, which was quite a surprising victory. They looked very in control. They scored themselves 6 tries over the games, the Ospreys, so definitely looking like they've had a real improvement. Like I said, in that last 18 months or so for the Ospreys has been a real step up, and they're taking it seriously coming into this tournament. Of course, players in there wanting to get into the Lions, people like George North playing hard to try and get in there. One thing that stood out for me was absolutely the set piece in that game for Wales looked very strong. Scrummaging and mauls looking devastating. It's something we didn't really get to see a great deal of in the Wales tour through the Six Nations. We wanted to see them potentially do a little bit more of that. The scrums were certainly solid, but so many players coming from the Scarlets in those front row departments, it can be really hard to have a lot of Ospreys influence in there. But the mauling was very good, led to a couple of tries for them, and just generally their set piece looked very, very good. And I thought across the board, Ospreys looked in control for that game. The Blues did have some bonuses for them as well. They managed to score those 14 points, not as many as they would have wanted to. But one player that stood out for me in that Blues team, Max Llewellyn, who's really beginning to come in recently. I'm looking forward to see him potentially finding his way into that Lion, to the Wales shirt at some point. I've already got Lions on the brain. I'm stuck in that format now. But in all seriousness, Wales, the number 12 position, that inside centre, is in a lot of trouble. They've tried to put Nick Tompkins in there. He doesn't really do very well for me. I think he works better as the outside centre. Jonathan Davis might be over his peak a little bit at the minute. I don't think he's doing very well, and especially in that 12 position, don't think he's playing very well there at all. And Johnny Williams also out with a lot of injuries in that 12, and Hadley Park's busy playing in Japan. I mean, they've all left. So in all seriousness, they're looking for a number 12 replacement, Wales. Max Llewellyn's really showing off in that blue shirt. I wouldn't be surprised if we get to see him. If he keeps up his form, it'd be nice to see him move to the international scene. Really looking forward to seeing where he goes. Talking about big results, and a big upset here I think would be surprising. Talking about the Benetton Glasgow game, which I think most people would have had Glasgow to win relatively maybe not comfortably, but it should have been a win for them nonetheless. And that had a bit of a turnaround in that game. Benetton winning that game 46-19, which is an incredible scoreline. Never thought I'd be seeing Benetton scoring quite so many points. And especially after a Six Nations where Italy haven't particularly begun to show off, but we've seen players definitely increasing in their attacking ability. The defence leaving them a little bit rendered useless maybe in the Six Nations. They couldn't really cope with the other Tier 1 nations with what they can bring attack-wise. The defence wasn't really helping them, but their attack definitely stepped up. We got to see a lot more tries coming from Italy this year from people running with the ball rather than having to just drive over the try line from a maul or something. But it was nice to see so many of the Italian contingency that did go to that tournament actually playing well at club level. Of course, the one standout man, if no one's seen it, I would recommend going and checking out some of the highlights from Connacht. On his own is just a machine in that game. He got himself 2 tries, which for a lock is relatively unheard of. Not an awful lot scoring tries nowadays in rugby. So it was nice to see Connacht going over the line a couple of times. Got himself 2 tries. He had a great little run, breaking through the line, a great handoff on the defender, making his way across, got himself a Man of the Match award. It was nice to see, along with some other of the Italian players we got to see on that international scene that didn't really have the best tournament, but at club level they're looking strong, and they have had big talks recently about the club level, Benetton wanting to step up a little bit and become a bit more of a competitive threat, not just in the club level, but then to push forward to the international level. And it's certainly coming through. If they continue through the Rainbow Cup like this, they could be seeing quite a few wins. In fact, they remain currently at the top of the board, which I'm not sure how long they'll remain there for, but it's nice to see them up there with a very good win over Glasgow. Glasgow didn't play super poorly, I couldn't say, but they just felt a little bit out-muscled, and Benetton are still missing players. There's still quite a few people missing through injury, so that's not even necessarily the strongest team they could bring to the game. So, interesting to see where they go, in all honesty. I would like to see them have that extra little step up and become very, very dangerous in this club level game. Moving on, let's talk about an Irish game, Leinster versus Munster. Another potential bit of an upset, you could say here. Leinster, of course, doing very well in their club level. We all expect them to. The Irish team has an awful lot of Leinster players going through. The sort of transparency that you see going straight through from club to the international level has always been apparent in how well Leinster have done, leading to how well Ireland tend to do in the Six Nations. But Munster really bringing it. I'm quite surprised, actually. So many players, I think, that are in this Munster team are obviously wanting to get on a Lions tour. Conor Murray got himself 2 tries. I think he knows that scrum half position is up for grabs in that Lions tour, and he wants to make sure he's there. 2 tries is certainly the way to be impressive. Going to be looking forward to seeing him. I think he will get into the Lions tournament. It would be surprising if he doesn't make it. Someone else looking very strong that I think a lot of people would have for their Lions tournament, Tadhg playing well, played well in the Six Nations, was my Six Nations team of the tournament, man of the match, whatever you want to call him, the top boy on on the Six Nations. Thought he played very well. Player of the tournament, that's the phrase I was looking for. Terrible, innit? I've only been away a week and I already can't remember some of the words I'm trying to say here. But Tadhg playing very well. A couple of really nice turnovers from him. Definitely looking like a threat. Would be a big surprise if he doesn't get himself on a Lions tournament. And Damien D. Allende, who is not a player I know an awful lot about, but in that centre channel looking very dangerous. Got himself the man of the match award, which I think was very deserved. Managed to get a nice little run through. You see the devastation centres can bring when they're given open lines and a bit of a gap to run through. He really made some great moves and it allowed him to get through, leaving to a Conor Murray try. But D. Allende absolutely being the leader in there. So looking forward to seeing him a little bit more. Club level, unfortunately for me, has been something I haven't been able to watch a great deal. Well, for the last year or so, unfortunately, I've had to focus an awful lot more on international, and when I'm doing the videos and stuff, less spare time again. So it's a shame I don't get to see as much club level as I would like. So it's nice to see some of these players coming through, and of course we will no doubt be seeing them in the international jerseys at some point. Talking about a nil upset that we almost had was Edinburgh versus Zebre, which could have gone either way. Honestly, it was quite a close fight going through. There were definitely players on both sides really being able to show off. Edinburgh really brought a nice passing game to that one. If you're someone that likes to break down rugby and sort of enjoys the skill, you will definitely have enjoyed the Edinburgh game. The ability for passing is really not something we get to see an awful lot of in rugby anymore. They tend to be very set designed sort of set pieces where they come off of Scrums and mauls, they have a certain set play they want to run. Ireland are the sort of key factors for me here. They have about 2 that they like to use off the back of set pieces, and they just have a normal set play that they tend to run. You don't get to see a lot of interesting interlooping play anymore, but Edinburgh certainly brought it. A couple of fantastic missed passes that led for tries. A couple of fantastic set pieces that no one really knew where they were going to go at the end of those set pieces. Get the little set plays on the go. It's so hard to not get them confused as you're saying them. But interlooping, players running around, players doing nice little dummy runs, working very well. I definitely think they probably deserved to get the win in terms of the skill level they brought, but Zebre certainly played well. Johan Meyer managing to get himself a try, another man, again, played well in the Italy team in the Six Nations, but definitely didn't get to see too much of him, and it was nice to see him at club level showing off a little bit more. So nice to see him getting a try for himself as well. Just 2 games left, so we'll talk about the very close-knit game that we had, which was Ulster versus Connacht, with Connacht just managing to snatch that game away 26-24, a very tight game in that one, really going sort of tooth and nail, back and forwards, the pendulum swing in terms of scoreboards, going very, very close. Both teams actually bringing very similar styles to it. The forwards, the pick and goes were going big from the forwards, and when you had mauls and scrummaging was very big in terms of their work. And then when it got to the backs, both teams going for very loose back plays. There wasn't a lot of formation running. There was a lot of players really going on their own. We got to see Stockdale get a try, which is nice to see. Of course, we didn't get to see him in that Ireland shirt an awful lot. He did get brought in, I believe, just for that final game in the Six Nations. Stockdale been out of form at international level, at least for probably a year, maybe 2 years. That might be a bit harsh in saying 2 years, but certainly not been where he wanted to see. So it's nice to see Stockdale getting over that try line. Certainly seem to be pushing him into that fullback role an awful lot more now. We don't get to see him in the 11 shirt anymore, which is a shame, but he is getting on a little bit in years. James Lowe, we know how good he's been in the tournament. He certainly fizzled out towards the end of the tournament, but at the start of the tournament, James Lowe is trying to impress. Hugo Keenan, Andrew Conway's in there as well as Keith Earls is on good form at the minute. Getting into that Ireland jersey, if you're not on top-notch form, is going to be real difficult. So shame for him, but playing well at club level, which is always nice to see. And a final try that came in that managed to seal out the game, which I didn't actually think it got scored. A little grubber kick that came through, which was finished off. I couldn't find any close-ups, which was a real shame of the ball actually getting down in that game, but stolen away right at the end. So Connacht managing to come away with that game. So it's nice to see them. Again, it's been a nice variance of rugby in this tournament so far. We've had the close-knit games, we've had the obliteration games, we've had the high-scoring games, and we've had the upsets already in round 1. I'm looking forward to see where this cup leads to. So the final game we've got to talk about is the game that's on screen at the minute. Dragons versus Scarlets. Dragons and Scarlets. What a game that turned out to be. The final score, Dragons 52 versus Scarlets 32. I mean, even in club level, seeing scores like that are quite extraordinary. I mean, 84 points across the game. In total, 12 tries scored, so it's hard to make up whether both teams were brilliant or both teams were terrible to try and work how it went. There were a couple of key points I did notice when I was watching some of that game back, looking at some of the highlights, looking at some of the key areas of that game. The Dragons were looking strong from what I got to see. Certainly areas they want to improve on. But a lot of the Scarlets tries seem to come through sort of Steph Evans doing some nice little runs, or sort of one man doing very well. Dragons certainly won't have been happy to have conceded some of the tries they did. I feel like they could have managed to held that out a little bit more. One player that did very well for them, which we don't get to see in the Wales shirt an awful lot, is Jonah Holmes. Really trying well. We know Jonah Holmes is actually a very good player. He can pretty much play anywhere, I think, in terms of the backs. I think I've seen him in almost every position bar scrum half at some point. Very diverse player. Really surprised we don't get to see him an awful lot more in a Wales jersey. Nice to see him doing well, though. Got 2 tries himself playing on that right wing. Going to be difficult to compete for Zamet's shirt. But maybe if he moves over to that left wing, maybe Zamet moving to that left wing. I think maybe Josh Adams could be on the lookout here for whether Jonah Holmes is going to go well. Steph Evans played well for Scarlets as well. So the wingers in Wales definitely looking strong. The numbers building on this Wales team. So the depth of squad they could have for next year's Six Nations could be very, very good. So 7 tries coming in total for the Dragons in that game. And one player that I would actually like to mention here, Aaron Wainwright managed to get his try, but the player that allowed him to get that try was Ross Moriarty, who I Ross Moriarty is a very difficult player. There are certain areas of his game I'm not a big fan of. He's an incredibly aggressive player, as I'm sure we're all used to now. But he does get an awful lot of yellow cards. But one thing I'm noticing in this club level, in this Rainbow Cup especially, is he's leaned down, he's working on his skills, his actual handling was very, very good in this tournament, and his just positional play was very good. It's nice to see Moriarty potentially getting back to a good form. I'm thinking he'd be quite annoyed to have lost his number 8 shirt now. Faletau back in that Wales team, and Aaron Wainwright can also play number 8, and I think Navidi would even fill in at number 8 if he really needed him to. So there's competition for that 8 shirt now. Moriarty obviously noticing it, so it's nice to see him getting back into a good form, and that game certainly played well. And the final note for that game, someone who didn't play well, who I think is going to be a big talking point, Jonathan Davies not playing the best rugby at the minute. I don't know whether this is age, maybe this is one of those signs of you should quit while you're ahead. I definitely think we've got to see Jonathan Davies really struggling recently. I did notice it in the Six Nations. In fact, we sort of noticed it earlier than the Six Nations. His performances haven't been the best. He's sort of a big name in rugby that has served club and country very well, but is struggling at the minute. And I think even in the Scarlets team, he's struggling to perform to a level he used to. Maybe he's carrying a sort of low-end injury that no one's really aware of. Maybe this is age kicking in. Maybe his form's just taking a bit of a knock. It's a shame they've lost Hadley Parks in that centre department for the Scarlets, but Jonathan Davies really struggling. But like I said, I think Max Llewellyn could really be looking for an international jersey, especially with players like Jonathan Davies not performing to the top level. It's the opportunity for the youngsters to start getting in and start moving into that international jersey. But it's been a fun weekend of rugby. So there's a bit of a news update. Not really sort of video I tend to do. Chuck a video of the game on in the background while I'll just sort of go over some of the news. But I wanted to cover so many different things. I was going to do a separate video for each club level game, but I wasn't going to be able to find the time to do them. So this was going to be my way of doing a bit of a Rainbow Cup roundup, let's call it. And I thought the news came out today about George North, about his actual ACL injury. So he's going to have surgery on that, which is a bit of a shame for him, so I thought I'd include that in this sort of video. But if you like this style of video, guys, a bit of rugby news, maybe you guys haven't managed to catch all the games over the weekend, maybe you enjoy someone going over the videos like this, so make sure you drop down in the comments if you enjoy this, what your thoughts were on the weekend's rugby. I'm sure a lot of people watched certain club level games over others, so I'm sure people have different info to bring down in the comments. I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. I will see you next time. Bye bye.